everyone, and welcome back to Confessions of a Catholic Mama. I'm Catherine, and I'm so grateful you're here with me today. This little podcast has been in my heart for a while, and my hope is that it becomes a place where we can be real together, a space of encouragement, honesty, and faith in the middle of our motherhood journeys. In today's episode, I want to talk about something that isn't always easy to bring up, but it's really important for us mamas to acknowledge postpartum depression. When we hear those words, many of us picture a mom who can connect with her baby. At least that's been my experience. But the reality is postpartum depression can look very different. For many mamas, it shows up not in a lack of love for our own babies, but in a hidden struggle within our own hearts and in our minds. So today we're going to open up that conversation. My prayer is that in this episode, it feels like a very cozy chat between friends where you can take a deep breath, feel seen, and be reminded that you're not walking this path alone. So postpartum depression, when we hear these words, I think many of us picture a mother who can't really connect with the baby, right? Or try to avoid holding the baby or her child. And while that can be true for some women, it's not the only way postpartum depression shows up. For many of us, the love for our babies, it's really strong. It's something that it can be indescribable. And at least for me, it changed my life forever. We hold them so close, we care for them, and for every need that they have, we stay up through sleepless nights, and it doesn't matter if we are running on empty, we're gonna keep on going. That is the power of being a mama. But inside, there's this heavy cloud that doesn't lift, and it's not about avoiding the baby, it's about the hidden struggle within our hearts and our own mind. So when I first started my pregnancy journey, postpartum depression wasn't even on my radar. I thought it was something that happened to other moms, not something that I'd have to walk through. And since I've heard that postpartum depression was only for the mamas that didn't want to connect with their baby, I said, well, this isn't me, because as soon as I have my baby, like that's the only thing I wanted to hold. I wanted to just care about. My priority was only my baby. Nothing else mattered. And I thought, okay, well, that's not really what I have. But through time, of course, and through education, reality is, and it touched me, that I did have postpartum depression in ways that I never expected. So this will be in another podcast episode, but I had a miscarriage. And when I went through that, I really didn't cry right away. It wasn't until over like a year later, holding my firstborn in my arms, that it finally hit me. This is how my first baby would have been. Or questioning what would it be like if he or she, right? Even though we automatically, we felt it was a him. So we kept saying, we named him with a him, with his name. And so, yeah, I was holding my firstborn, and he's already 2 right now. And I was imagining the many possibilities of that first pregnancy that I'm going to go further very in detail in another episode. But when I went through that, of course, I was anxious, nervous, but also I was just in awe. I have a soul inside my body. I have something growing in me, like a baby is going to develop inside of me. And so then I was just imagining all the possibilities. And so my emotions just spiraled. And with my firstborn, I was already so overwhelmed physically, and I was healing, and emotionally, I didn't know what to do or how to process it at all. It just came so fast because we were still mourning. And then I felt sick. A lot of things happened when I found out when I was pregnant, but how it was is that there was just no moment for what I can recall. And I would try to have an episode where I can have my husband with me because he has a good memory too. He'll be better than me. But yeah, I was just drained because I couldn't process everything. A lot of events happened at the same time. And also another extra event was that my husband was hit by two semi trucks. And so he was left without a car. He had it was a brand new car. It was a truck, and that was his method of transportation for him to go to his job. And so many changes happened in so little time. And so of course, going through pregnancy. When we lived far, because now we live closer to friends and family in our church community, but in the past, so it was when I got married. I got married in 2021, and we decided as a couple that we wanted and we were determined to live apart from our families. And it helped a lot because my husband and I, we were 5 years of dating, but it was a distance relationship, which again, that will be in another topic of how that was. But during that moment, we wanted to just be alone. We wanted to really just be having that marriage and be cultivating things on our own, essentially. And so then we lived apart from extended family. So it was just my husband and me when I was going through my pregnancy and then when we had my baby. So honestly, we were like zombies because we didn't ask for help, and we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. So when it came down to having baby at home, like he had to prepare breakfast, and lunch and dinner. But the thing is, it was because I had to be in bed. I didn't have a C-section. I had it natural, but at the same time, my body just was devastated. Like it wasn't up until 4 months that I felt like okay to move my body. And I think it was due to fear because it was my first pregnancy. I just didn't know what was okay, what was not okay to do. And so I was so cautious. But the first 2-3 weeks, the first month, I had to depend 100%, 120% on my husband. And thankfully he was around and he was able to be there to take care of the baby. Even though there was moments when he couldn't, there were moments that he was like, and I think it's the grace of God that gives us all women this wonderful mother instinct and superpower. The grace, I just say it's just the grace that we're given as mamas. And so if we would wake up and we wouldn't feel like we were exhausted or something, and even if we were dying of exhaustion, we would go. I mean, that's the reality. And I think a lot of mamas will agree with me. And of course we do need to take care of ourselves, but granted, it was my first pregnancy, and so I had no clue what was happening and everything. What was I getting myself into? And so I didn't do a lot of the things to take care of me. So the only thing I knew were the things that I'm going to talk about right now. And my body needed a lot of healing. And emotionally, I just felt isolated because of the reason of being away from family. But even if family was close, you still feel isolated because one thing is how the things were when you were growing up in the 90s and then how things are now. And I feel like many mamas will agree with me now that, like, even though there's more things out there, like education, you can look at YouTube, you can look at different resources. There are things that you want to do different. And so then it's going to be sometimes not agreeing or agreeable with the extended family. So yeah, I just kept wondering, is this how it's supposed to be? I didn't know anyone around me who had gone through all of this what was I feeling? And the younger moms I knew lived out of state, or I knew older moms, and I just didn't feel like we would connect. So I felt the only person in the world walking through this, it was just me. And on top of that, I felt the guilt and shame. I mean, people around me were upset because I couldn't give them the time or attention that I used to. And I thought, why are you mad? I'm caring for a newborn. This is all I can give right now. But still, part of me carried the weight of not being able to make everyone happy. And then, but part of my personality is, okay, I don't care. Like, I'm just going to care about me. But there's, of course, another side that wants to please people. So then when 6 months postpartum hit, I got pregnant again. And so just imagine this surge of hormones. And strangely, what helped me little by little was starting new projects. And so I was venturing into a small business, selling religious items at markets, connecting with new communities because we would travel. And so when I was pregnant with my second born, she's now 1, I remember connecting with all these people and talking with different mamas that were also pregnant, and we would go to different communities. And that would be a way for me to kind of distract myself. And that gave me a way to interact again and breathe outside of my own isolation. But even then, postpartum depression lingered in different ways. I remember one of the hardest things was when I had to let go of my old clothing. And I know that this would be like, oh, I can't believe you're saying that, Catherine. Or you might be thinking like, yeah, like knowing you from the past, like you had so many clothes. But the thing is, reality hit me that I was not going to go back to my pre-baby size, which is 4. Especially as we remained open to life, my body had changed, and drastically, because with my firstborn, I was huge. And then the secondborn, I was even bigger. And I couldn't cling to who I was before. So in a way, I lost myself, and piece by piece, I donated my old wardrobe. And at the time, it was really emotional. And maybe some of you mamas will resonate with this, but it felt like letting go of a former self, but you didn't want to let go of that person still. But looking back now, I see God was simplifying me, or in other words, sanctifying me, because I really needed to let go. Like, I was attached to certain things, and when I was able to let go, I felt this freedom, and also teaching me not to cling to vanity, but to embrace the woman and the mother who was shaping me into. And then now I can say that that doesn't put me into a very emotional state. Like, I very am agreeing to how my body is changing and how it shifts, because there's moments when I did lose weight, but then there's moments when I been, gaining weight, because I have another pregnancy coming right now. But this brings me back. Okay, let's go back to postpartum depression. Sometimes it looks like showing up every single day for your baby. So you're showing up for your baby, but doing it while feeling numb or anxious or quietly questioning your worth as a mother. And I know that this is something that we mamas get into. We might be thinking, am I enough? Or am I going to be able to do all the things that I want to do for my baby? Either bringing up, having them into a good faith life, or just having these different expectations from people around you, or even just from yourself. And it can mean that you're smiling at your baby while inside you're holding back tears. And it can mean rocking your child to sleep while whispering desperate prayers just to make it through another night. And that's something that when I was going through, with my firstborn, it was so hard. And here's the truth. We don't say enough. Loving your baby deeply does not protect you from postpartum depression. You can be the most attentive, the most affectionate mama, and still be suffering silently. That doesn't make you less of a mother. It doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. And yeah, I'm telling you this now, that he's 2 years old, but it took a lot of me to realize that. And the hardest part is that it looks different for every mama. So my story is not going to be the same as the other. And that's totally fine. Some cry often, some don't cry at all. But we feel empty. And some of us feel restless and anxious. My anxiety levels were up the roof. I couldn't bear to see people. And I felt like no one could understand what I was going through. Some of the comments I would hear is, oh, I didn't go through that. Or, in my time, things were like this, and or things were worse. You have it so easy. Those things don't help. And then others are weighed down and exhausted, and it can even show up in physical ways like aches or racing thoughts, loss of appetite, or gaining a lot of appetite. And so you find yourself eating more than you need to. And because it looks so different, it's often misunderstood. One of the things that I've been hearing a lot whenever I say, oh yeah, I've been going through postpartum depression, or I went through postpartum depression, they automatically say to me, most of the time, would just tell me, oh, me too. I didn't want to be near my baby. But that's not, I don't say anything, of course, because I respect the conversation and the person that's there because they're opening up. But that's not what I went through. And then family, especially older generation, sometimes they don't understand, which I don't blame, but that's the reality. They might say things like I just told you, like, we don't have that in my day, or just be strong and be grateful because you have it easy. They mean well, but those words, they cut deep and they don't help. Every woman's story is different. Every birth and every postpartum season is unique. What one generation faced is not the same as what we face now. And that is something so true. And I need you to hear that again. Like, what one generation faced is not the same as what we face now. So think about that. I remember that another thing is breastfeeding. That was such another event, another unexpected trial for me. I was so determined to nourish my child, and only through breastfeeding, and when to just do breastfeeding, and I wasn't able to, and that broke me in a way that I knew I couldn't even talk about it because it choked me. Like, I would be choking. I would hear family members say things like, oh, I had so much milk, it would overflow when pumping. And those words shattered me. In silence, I carried the pain, believing I couldn't fully mother my child because my own milk supply was so low. And I did fall even deeper in that depression. My husband was my rock, and even he couldn't fully understand that ache in my heart, and I couldn't even explain it myself. I remember those days, and in that place of sorrow, I turned to prayer. There was no other way. And that's the thing that I want to go into is we have to go into prayer because we mamas go through so much physically, so much emotionally, that the only thing that keeps us going is knowing that Jesus went through Calvary, but his mother was there. And I prayed so much to Our Lady of La Leche, the patroness of this podcast, and entrusted my pain to her motherly heart. She comforted me in a way that only a true mother can. She's our perfect mother. She was reminding me of my worth, that I was not defined by the amount of milk I produced, even though that hurt so much. And that I was defined, by that love that I would give my child every day, little by little, even if it hurt. My heart began to heal. And profoundly, because I was able to talk about it with people in the midst of it. And I found the courage to say out loud, yes, I supplement because I don't have a lot of milk supply. And to let that be enough. to let just that be enough. You don't have to justify yourself or to continue on. Just say that. That's it. And as time passed by, I met other mamas who had also walked through this pain because my own heart had been healed, and I was so able to listen with compassion and understand their suffering in a new way. God in His mercy uses those moments of trial to shape us and to grow us in virtue. Suffering, when in union with Him, must lead us closer to holiness. There is no other way. And one of the things that I always have prayed to God is that I do want to suffer here on earth because I want to be with Him one day. I want to be able to be in that, I don't know how to say in English, but beatified vision, I believe you say it. But that beautiful moment that I feel like there's been just a few moments when I've been living in retreats in our prayer community, it's a American community for Spanish speaking, but I've had moments where I just don't care about anything else. I just want to be with Him. And we need to suffer. Now I understand, like I had to go through that suffering of mourning. I had to go through that suffering of feeling isolated, feeling alone, and actually being alone too, because there was no one there. And the people who often see it most clearly are the ones right there with us, which in my case, my husband, my children, because I know my babies went through it too. The firstborn, at least the firstborn, my secondborn, the experience was a little bit more different. I went through another trial, but it was a little bit different. And, you know, our husband, they noticed the change in our eyes, the way our smile doesn't reach as far as it used to. They notice those little things, and our baby will feel the heaviness in the air, even while being loved and cared for. They would feel it. It's an invisible weight the outside world doesn't see, but inside the home, it's deeply felt. And after being misunderstood again and again, what happens? We start to withdraw. And I know I did. Not because we don't want connection, but because the fear of judgment feels heavier than the hope of being understood. We don't want to hear another comment like, at least your baby is healthy, or you'll be fine, or this is the way that it has to be. Like, yes, I get it. Like, I have a brain and I understand that. But the way I feel, so we stay quiet, and trust me, many times I heard those words. And we pull back from friends, we stop answering messages, we avoid gatherings because putting on a smile feels exhausting. So exhausting. When you haven't slept, when you barely have time to even go to the bathroom to shower. And thank God that recently I found a few mamas and they mentioned, I was able to shower. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I wasn't the only one that had an issue with that. And little by little, we become more and more alone in it all. Not because we don't love people, but because silence feels safer than being judged. I mean, let's be honest. And it's strange. It's a strange kind of loneliness because we're never truly alone. We have our babies with us in our arms, our husbands by our side, and inside we feel like we're carrying this invisible battle that no one else can see. And that loneliness makes the postpartum depression even harder. But I want to tell you, Mama, if you're listening to this and this is your story, your worth is not measured by how strong you appear to be. Needing help does not mean you are weak. It means you're human, and it took me a while to get that. It means you're carrying a cross, and God, who sees the heart, knows you're suffering even when the world does not, or even when just the little circle around you does not. When I think of Mary at the foot of the cross, I see a mother. A mother loved her son with her whole heart. And yet she still experienced unimaginable sorrow. So think about that. She still experienced that sorrow. Love and suffering existed side by side, and that is often the reality of postpartum depression, an overlap of deep love and deep struggle. An overlap of deep love. So you are loving so much, but then there's the struggle. So if this is you, if you're giving your all to your baby while secretly drowning inside, I want you to know you're not alone. Christ sees you. Our Blessed Mother is with you. She's interceding for you. Healing is possible, even if it feels far away right now. So if you're going through it right now, I know how that felt. I was there. I was right there. Mama, so if you're listening and any part of this story resonates with you, please know you're not alone. Postpartum depression does not define you. Your love for your baby is real. Even when your heart feels heavy, Christ sees you. Christ sees you. And thank you. Thank you for walking with me through this reflection. I had to say this because it was so in my heart that I just needed to share. I know women go through this and might feel alone, but may God bless you in your motherhood, strengthen you in your struggles, and remind you that your worth is found in Him alone. So thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I hope that I am able to see you in the next one. If you haven't yet, please rate our show in Spotify, if you're on Spotify or in Apple Podcasts, wherever app you find yourself in, and help supporting us by sharing it. And there's more content coming up. Please pray for us. Please intercede for us. And as always, remember this: she loves, she serves, and she's Mama.